Am I live? You can. Oh, yeah, you can hear me. So, what we wanted to do, and thanks for your fortitude. I know we're getting close to the end of the show. There may have been cocktails involved yesterday. So, what we wanted to do with this session was, instead of showing you project plans and delivery schedules and some of the tactical things we've been doing together, we wanted to just tell you a story. And over the course of telling that story, hopefully share some best practices in terms of certain kinds of processes and program delivery around tag management and measurement management, but do it in a soft, sneaky way. So we met and we started working together actually because of Telium IQ last year. So Brian said, hey, do you like hockey? And then 3 days later I was like, hey, I do analytics. Like it was a good partnership. And one of the things that we realized is that Brian's going to be kind of telling the story of Lucky Brand over the last year. One of the things that we realized was that similar to other organizations that Napkyn's worked with for this kind of project, it was a lot easier to burn down the house and start from scratch in terms of their entire measurement and kind of marketing technology ecosystem than to remediate what they already had. So again, in kind of the form of a story, what we'd like to do today is go through some of the kind of key milestones in this kind of project. I'll share some of the best practices and some things to be aware of, and then Brian's going to be talking in detail about how it's relevant to the work we've done together in the last year. Do we have a clicky thing, or I'm just going to hit spacebar?
That's your clicky thing.
Oh, cool. Okay. So, I'm Jim Kane. I'm the CEO of Napkyn. We are a Telium partner. We only do digital measurement, and we work primarily with some of the largest brands in retail. We're based in Canada, and I love your dollars very, very much. Brian?
Yeah, hi, I'm Brian. I'm the digital marketing director for Lucky Brand, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Lucky Brand in a second.
So the quick agenda, like kind of some of the milestones we're going through from have house to have new house, are admitting you have a problem, doing your demolition, doing your blueprints, building your foundation, and then skip your new home. So what I want to do is kind of start out with the admit you have a problem. And what happens with a lot of, again, large digital organizations, over the course of the last 10 years or so, measurement in general and now tag management as well aren't treated as first-class items. This isn't something that we have a defined business owner, we have a defined technical owner. It's a, hey, while you're in there setting up the content manager, can you bolt on this Telium thing we just bought? And what tends to happen is, and we're seeing a lot more of this in the last few years, at some point something goes wrong that costs a lot of money. Or at some point a member of the senior executive team says, BI's not cutting it on its own right now. The reports from finance aren't. What about web analytics? Can you guys tell me the nonfiction story I want to see from that tool? And people realize that the underpinnings of the house are in very, very bad shape. So because no one owned measurement, you've got 10 years of duct tape and baling wire in terms of your analytics infrastructure. You tend to have a lot of, I'm sure none of you guys, but sometimes some other people end up in a situation where their tag manager is a combination of some in-tool deployment and then a whole lot of IT saying it'll be quicker to bolt it onto the site direct than build the data layer, skip. So you end up in a situation where you just have to admit it. You have to look at what that foundation is in terms of your tag management, your measurement structure, your pixels, your other marketing tools of record that probably aren't in your tag manager either. You got to say, we have a problem. And so one of the things that, Brian will touch on, but when you sit back and you do an effort estimate on how to fix everything we've got that's really busted, and then you do an effort estimate on let's start from scratch, in a lot of cases, it is much easier and much more beneficial to the organization to start from scratch. It sounds counterintuitive, but you haven't seen some of the web trends deployments I've played with in the last couple of years. So you burn it down. You knock down the entire marketing infrastructure, and you start over with an appropriate first-class plan.
All right, yeah, so I love this slide, mainly because that's probably how most of us are feeling right now. I know I am. And I will tell you, some of you guys might be wondering how I'm going to connect this to Lucky Brand, and I'm going to tell you I'm going to do that right now. So a little bit about Lucky Brand is that, for those of you that don't know, we are a vertical retailer of premium denim and fashion apparel. We have 200 brick and mortar locations. We sell at wholesale, and obviously we have a .com business. The .com business represents about 15% of the total revenue for the company, right? So again, like very traditional brick and mortar retail, not a digital organization, right? So that's going to come back into play later. What a lot of you guys probably don't know, and you have no reason to know or really to even care, is that Lucky Brand used to be part of Kate Spade and Company, and we were acquired by private equity late in 2013. And the reason why that's important is because when that happens, typically there's a large amount of executive turnover and key stakeholder turnover. So I started about 6 months after that, and being one of the lucky few that got to come back on and see what was going on here.
Pun intended.
Yeah, absolutely pun intended. My initial assessment was that we had the best tools that money could buy 6 years ago. And so what that meant was we had an old version of Demandware that was not really well supported, highly customized, a lot of duct tape and bubble gum. So any vendor that said, oh yeah, we have a cartridge, it's like, well, that's great, but it won't work for us. We had, I would say, a functional but very limiting and cumbersome web analytics tool. No, you don't want to jump on that? Okay, and we also had
we don't want to name names, but it rhymes with more metrics. So there you go.
Thank you, Jim. And also, we had no tag management, right? So all pixels were direct deployed to the website during monthly builds of the website, right? So I'm sure a lot of you guys have been there before, and it's not incredibly fun. So what do all those things have in common, other than kind of sucks? There's a lot of risk involved, right? Because you have a lack of agility, right? And what you can do with the platform, with tag management, with analytics. I mean, and Lucky was not a digital organization, right? So that's why these things were in that shape, right, when I got there and when I met Jim. So I'll give you guys an example. So my first month, someone broke a display pixel, and we had no display advertising for 2 months, right? Because we had to find out what happened, get it into a build, oh, we did it wrong, let's get into the next build. So the good news was this happened in July and not in November, right? But it gives you guys an example of the risk, right, that's involved with not having tag management. So the other upside in that, or the only upside really, was that it allowed me to be able to explain what tag management is to upper management and educate upwards, right? So I know that it's a very difficult product, right, to quantify and to explain. So to me, it's not just tag management, it's risk management, right? It's agility and risk management. So we got through holiday of 2014 without any other issues, thankfully, that I'm aware of. And then in spring of 2015, the VP of e-commerce left, and also our key analytics stakeholder, basically the only person that knew how to work core metrics more than just running basic reports, left the company as well. And the future was starting to look like this. See what I did there? Okay.
Well played.
Thank you.
So, some of the best practices that we're trying to share, again, if anybody ever wants to see some of our project delivery plans and the really nitty-gritty stuff, like, come talk to us. But a lot of the things that make this kind of initiative successful are more soft skills and things to think about as you're working. So, the ability to get executive buy-in for digital measurement, which again, sometimes doesn't get treated as an on-purpose we care thing, is important. And I can't stress enough the fact that this kind of work can't be a do you want fries with that afterthought to a bigger project. So, the decision was made to treat tag management and the web marketing infrastructure as its own initiative, and that was one of the biggest things that I feel paid dividends in the project. So now we've got a big hole in the ground. We've knocked down the house. It's scary. It's exciting. What can happen in a lot of cases is people immediately go, all right, IT, you're up. Go forth and build. And then you're setting yourself up to do it again in about 18 months, right? So the first thing you do before anyone picks up a keyboard is you start building your blueprints. What are we going to do? Why are we going to do it? And the 5-minute meetings that you have to do your blueprint planning or your requirement solicitation will save you 5 weeks or 5 months in the implementation process. So the first thing that you want to do is, and that says business requirements, you want to get the business requirements, and that's conversations, that's stakeholder outreach, that's speaking to key people in the executive, key people in marketing, asking questions like, what are the numbers that you care about? How accurate do you feel they currently are? What names would you use for things? and really getting buy-in across the organization for this is what perfect could look like. So A, it's going to drive all the requirements for the entire project, but B, it's going to ensure that when all the hard work is done, you have an excited group of users when you cut the ribbon, right? So business requirements are key. The order of operations that we think that you should do something like this against is to do your web analytics tooling requirements first. So in general, the web analytics tool is by far the most significant consumer of data through your tag manager. And so if you can get your web analytics requirements right and get really good kind of depth and breadth of data, you'll be in a situation where a lot of the additional requirements that come down the pipe for other tools and tags are already covered from a data layer perspective by the web analytics rollout. The other thing is web analytics is the reporting. It's the thing the business users get to see, so spend a lot of time there. The next thing you want to do is just do a full audit of all the marketing pixels. I know this is kind of like 101 stuff, but it tends to be the development team goes to get started and they go, hey, what do we have right now? What are we adding in a couple of months? So being able to, from kind of a business analysis perspective, map out everything we've got and what it should be, everything we're going to get over the course of this project, because no one's going to hit the pause button, and what it's going to be, means that we're in a situation where we got full data coverage, full marketing data capture or data sharing coverage. And then finally, when those things are done, this is an extra credit one, but what are the tools that marketing has bought that no one considered about from a tag management perspective? How do we get your testing tool of record? How do we get the advanced email integrations that you might have into your website into a complete picture? Because one of the outputs for this is governance and scalability and making things easier, right? So being in a situation where you've got a full map gives you the ability to have a fully rolled out blueprint. So here's a quick point of note. So that's a IT person and a business person. That's what I'm trying to get through here. So
that's basically what it looked like, yeah, when we did this.
Yeah, we wore hard hats. Yeah. It was awesome. So a lot of people buy tag management tools in particular because they hate the IT department. I'm sure, again, nobody in this room. But it is a common misconception, in our opinion, that a good tag management implementation decouples marketing requirements from IT delivery. A proper tag management implementation actually creates a breakdown of the silo walls between the business users and the marketing teams and lets things flow smoothly. So a key piece of building the blueprint is working with your IT stakeholders to find out, why do you hate working with the marketing department? What is the most frustrating thing about getting at speed, I need it tomorrow, on-site delivery requests when your next release is in 3 weeks? What role would you like to play in having this project be successful and maintained over time? Because we've had several conversations before with the business stakeholder where they go, I don't actually want to do it, I just want to get what I want when I want it, and IT doesn't play nice. But we've had very similar conversations with the IT stakeholder where they go, let me get this straight, marketing's going to pay for software. And that software, when set up properly, means that my team doesn't need to do a whole lot of work. We don't get hammered against our release schedule, but we still own the publish button. We're still the gatekeeper to a successful, effective website. It sounds good to me, I'm in. Like, it's not a hard conversation. But if it doesn't happen as part of the blueprint creation, it's going to be real hard to pull this off. So, if you don't have good alignment between the business team and the marketing team, that blueprint, when you start to execute it, you end up here. And things go bang. And you've got a project that never ends, and you're worse off than you started.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about this alignment between IT and marketing and business in building the requirements for a project like this. And I get to Tarantino, you guys again, and flashback to, so VP just left, Kate Spade. The other part of the Kate Spade things means that we had to bring every system in-house. So payroll, intranet, BI tools, reporting, CRM, ERP, ESP, any three-letter acronym that you can think of, we had to bring that in-house at Lucky Brand and separate it back from Kate Spade. And also with the VP of Ecom being gone, that meant I was working directly. Now the marketing guy is working directly with the CIO, the IT guy, and I was fortunate enough that he's actually a really awesome guy and very collaborative and very open-minded about what he was brought in to take Lucky to the next level as a digital organization and do all of these things I just talked about, all these systems. So, he's a systems architect, and I was fortunate enough that he included me in the conversation. So when we were building the roadmap, and this is like there's an immediate, oh shit, we have to get this done now, and there was 5 years from now where we think we're going to go. It became pretty clear that e-com and digital were at the center of a lot of these things. So things like the loyalty program or omni-channel inventory transactions, things like that. And so, again, this represents another paradigm shift for Lucky Brand, right? One of my many initial statements was that we were not a digitally savvy organization, but now we're putting digital at the center of all these things. So it's website, it's analytics, and we're deploying analytics through proper tag management, right? So now we're gaining agility that's built into a roadmap with full support of the CIO and the IT team. The other thing that we were able to do here was I'll go back to one of my other previous statements. We are a very merchant-centric organization, like buyers run the company, right? So buyers report on product and performance much, much differently than web analysts report on product and performance. And it's actually, it's kind of a language barrier thing. So we were, while the hood was open, we were able to, as part of the data layer and part of the reporting requirements, we were able to build the web analytics closer and more perfectly aligned with how the buyers analyze the business. So we could have very quick, very meaningful, very insightful conversations when we're trying to figure out what happened yesterday, what happened last week, what's working, what's not working. I had one more and I have to find it in my notes. Oh, so yeah, we are also now talking about getting e-commerce KPIs into our BI tools that report back to the rest of the business. We didn't do that before, and that's, again, like a lot of, we had lunch with MogCloth yesterday and they could not believe that we didn't do that. But we didn't. We were a traditional retail organization, right? So that was not even on the radar previously. So that, again, like with the proper levels of alignment and stakeholder, people just caring, right? We were able to build this into the Telium project, right? So that's, to me, that was probably one of the coolest things that could have possibly happened in the middle of the IT equivalent of the Revenant, basically, that other team had to go through last year with all the system migrations. We kind of found the positive in that, looking back on it.
Good reference.
Thank you.
That's solid. So what are the best practices for blueprint creation? I mean, again, the most important one, or one of the most important things here, is that this is a great opportunity to not just fix your tooling, but get people excited about finally getting reports they trust in the language they use and the places they want. It's a great opportunity to have everybody using the analytics tool of record as opposed to everybody using 5 different tools to try to report on the same number. So not only are you going to get your requirements for what finished and what perfect means, but you're going to be creating a high level of excitement on what finished is going to bring to the organization. And you let your analytics requirements be, again, the #1 consumer of your tag manager, therefore the thing that you spend the most time on. You will really reap the benefits of having an appropriately deployed data layer that meets all your analytics requirements. Because again, the less you have to go back to that data layer the easier it is to be more agile. And with few exceptions, if someone says they want something and that something, whether the agency or partner or the internal team says, let's not put it into the tag manager, maybe you should bench it. Maybe you should really clearly review what that thing is, because it's not going to follow best practice and you're going to pay for it later. And again, golden opportunity, IT and business. Create hugs, have a cuddle party, get them talking about requirements on one side to implementation on the other, because one of the outputs to this is a functioning interdepartmental workflow around, I want this, I'll help you get it. And document the heck out of everything. That's just a given. It's one of those little things that people don't do when they're running this kind of project. And when you think about governance and when you think about making changes to things that were done earlier, it's one of those dirt moments where you go, man, I wish we'd spent the 10 minutes because I forgot what we did a few months ago. So document everything. So now we're in a place where we've got stakeholder excitement. We should have a little bit of alignment between the people who write the code and the people who need data from the code. We've got a good solid plan for what finished looks like as we begin to completely go out and rebuild our house. So now we're going to talk foundations. So when we think about foundations, the important thing is that, and we're not just saying this because we're at the Telium conference, the tag management implementation is the core foundation of this entire process. What we see, again, in certain organizations that we're just starting to work with, I mean, Brian was lucky that, again,
Yeah,
pun intended,
yeah, good.
wah, wah.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a tag manager, right? So we were going to have to do something fairly heavy duty anyways to bring it into the business. So this kind of burn down the house thing was easier with them. With other organizations where we've done a similar kind of program, they bought a tag manager, and it's always marketing loved the value proposition. IT had to set up the data layer, so now they've got kind of a dual environment where some things are on the site and some things are in the tag manager. So you've got to go and blow that whole thing away and start over. So if you think of Tag Manager as the fundamental way of getting marketing technology into the website, and you start going through one of these processes, you're going to start to see a change in the way that IT engages with marketing, but you're also going to see a change in the way that vendors are selected, work is done, and work is planned. So part of the reason things get deployed directly to site is because the development organization wasn't engaged in the setup process, and they go, so let me get this straight. I have to go make a change to the data layer, and then I have to do the thing that you asked me to do anyways. You're asking me to work twice. I'm gonna go ahead and just put it directly on the website, and I don't want you to call me again. Use Jira, right? Like that's what tends to happen. But as you go through this process properly and IT sees the benefit to their organization, executing all the requirements is relatively straightforward, like getting the tools and the pixels and that kind of stuff in. It's the deployment of the actual tag manager that is that foundational, like this is the platform through which marketing gets things done on the website. So again, we've got the baseline deployment. I'm not going to do the show of hands game. Everybody's tired, but if I was going to, I would say how many people have bought a tool where the sales guy said, don't worry about it, 12 lines of JavaScript, you put it on all your pages, it's a cash machine. So, right, most people don't go farther than that with their initial tag management implementation. But you still have to do it. That's the first step. Get it up, get it deployed. And then you start thinking about the things that you learned from marketing and the things that you learned from IT and the requirements. What is the best way for those people to work together? How will things move from development to staging? What is the QA process? Think a little bit like an IT organization, because this is supposed to empower them as well. So the way Telium is configured and set up is going to allow you to do things easier between departments, so it's critical. And then we've got the data layer. I'm not going to hammer this one home. You've been talking Telium for 48 hours, so everybody knows how important it is. Everybody knows the best practices here. And sometimes when you hear, you should do things this way, you don't actually have to. Like if you're a pro, you can kind of cut corners. Making the wrong decisions about the creation of your data layer is something you will pay for later, because this is the piece that has to be involved in an IT release cycle. This is not the thing that you can be agile on the fly when the project is over. So it is hypercritical. And if this involves going to the IT org and explaining, I know you're hearing data layer, I know it pisses you guys off because you think you're doing work twice, but let me explain how this is an asset to the organization and it's going to save you time later. It is totally worth doing that outreach. And then a clear definition of owners and responsibilities. Someone from IT should own publish. It is A, empowering to them, B, it's their job, and C, it's going to allow you to start running sprints or iterations, but not release cycle timed work to site. Someone in marketing should own requirements solicitation and sign off on, we did what I thought we were going to do. So who are those people and how do they get involved in this process now? So, actually, you want me to go back to the storytelling part? So.
Well, yeah, okay, so kind of tagging on what Jim is, no pun intended, is talking about right now. If I'm in TIQ, I mean, something's wrong, probably. Like, I should not be in TIQ doing anything other than, making people logins or checking the tag marketplace to see if a potential vendor has a tag. That's literally what I do in TIQ. So a lot of this, instead of just echoing exactly what Jim just said, I will say that this did take some work internally to figure out what is the right workflow, because we do use Napkyn as a third-party Telium developer. We have Will, raise your hand, Will. Hey, everybody, Will, as our dev stakeholder who's here and who's gone to Telium U and has learned, how to be, the publish guy, right? So we created this organizational alignment, and I think we're all feeling pretty good about it. I don't want to speak for Will, but you guys can ask him later. But any other, I have no more storytelling on that one, I think.
Well, I mean, there was a little bit of fumbling in the dark to figure out, again, as Brian said, Lucky's rebuilding its company while it's rebuilding its entire technology infrastructure while we're running this project, right? So there was a little bit of dancing in the dark to figure out who the owners are. I don't think that there was a lot of friction between the development organization and the marketing organization, but there was nothing this fluid. Like there wasn't beyond kind of death by email something where there was like a workflow.
Mm-hmm.
So there was definitely some kind of tentative outreach and figuring out roles and responsibilities. But there's a situation now where it's not IT has to throw things over the wall to marketing and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And again, that's kind of one of the big secondary outputs of doing this kind of project properly. So the best practices, again, on building foundations is that the tag management tool is not a thing that marketing bought for some of their AdWords pixels. It is a foundational piece of how your digital marketing infrastructure will work. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a CMO and said, do you know that your tag manager is a script injection tool that will let anybody put stuff in? And it was like, what? How many people have logins? All of your agency partners can log into your tag manager. Isn't that a terrible, you know what I mean? When people understand how powerful it is and how foundational it is, it becomes a first-class item. And it does make everything easier down the road. So then once people realize the importance of tag management in the infrastructure, then we can help people understand the importance of the data layer. And the easiest way that I've found to do that is something that, again, you've heard about a lot in the last few days, but it's not, it makes the tag manager work good. It's you're creating a separate high-value asset for the organization that's part of this, but here's a list of other things we can do to make money from this. And then the second people understand the value of the data layer, you will get full IT support and full business user support to get as much coverage as you can get. And this is land grab time, right? Like in this kind of project, the IT availability to do direct-to-site work should be as much data layer development as possible. Feel free to overdo it because it's something that will, again, pay dividends later. And when you're setting up the tool, it's not knocking IT out of marketing. And I know I'm really harping on this point, but it's one of the biggest outputs. You set it up to actually create an alignment between the groups. And it's, again, something that will allow you to execute properly. And then people need to own stuff. It can't be, we've talked to organizations before where we say, who owns the publish in your tag manager? And they go, well, everybody's busy, so our junior email marketing manager owns Telium or other tag manager. Like it's, senior people should own the critical pieces of a tool that's this important. And this is the time to do it as part of this Foundations project.
Yeah, and I'll fully admit, I didn't understand that too going into this. There's a lot, a lot of what Jim is saying. Like, I didn't know all this stuff, just so you guys know, I'm not that smart. So a lot of this is finding the right partners and the right education. And really, I'm glad that you guys are all listening to this right now, and I hope that it's useful to you because, again, this is like, we were starting from zero, right? And so all these best practices and recommendations would have been very valuable. And actually, we did get them, obviously. But had we not had these guys, we would have been kind of shooting in the dark, and we would have done a lot of things wrong. So. Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
You got it, man.
You're good, man.
No, thank you.
So,
this has to be so gross for you guys, I'm sorry.
We just have to hug it out.
Yeah.
So all the hard stuff's been done, honestly. I mean, the actual building your new home is not the hard part here. We're in a situation where we know 100% of everything that needs to be deployed to the site. We've got full analytics requirements and coverage. All the documentation has been done, so we've got all the scripts and all the requirements for the technology organization. We've done the full pixel audit. We've even gone and found a couple of tools that no one ever thought of this way, and we're bringing them in to this overall redeployment. And again, that could be email, that could be testing. We've done a full foundational deployment of the tag manager, treating it the way that it should be treated, so that we know we have full data availability and deployment coverage against all of our requirements. So moving towards got all this stuff and I got to get it in here is not actually that hard. So this is where, again, to think about workflows and to think about governance and long-term success for this kind of initiative, this is where you start to do the first work where marketing and IT pair off. We recommend, and our best practice is to do 2-week iterations. I don't like the word sprint because it gets certain kind of people really excited, so we call them iterations. An iteration starts with a list of requirements on things that will be finished by the end of the 2-week period. The internal team or working in concert with our team will get everything into a development environment and QA it and promote it to staging and QA it. And about 2/3 of the way into the iteration, the senior technology stakeholder who owns Publish does final QA, sign off, and publish. And they end up in a situation where they go, so all I got to do is review someone else's code. Like, this is awesome. I want to live in this world all the time. So we can take all of the requirements, break them into, and again, we say iterations, but a publishing schedule where marketing goes, I want this like this. Work happens, IT goes, it's the right work, and they publish it. And marketing says, thank you, it's what I wanted, and we don't need to redo it. It didn't go bang, thank you. So, you know, the hard parts, again, have all been done. The majority of the work on this kind of rollout project has been done. We put in the title, how to do it in 90 days. It's assertive, it's possible. And if we think about the timeline, 75 days has already elapsed, right? Like, the getting things into the properly deployed tag manager is just done in sprints at the end. And again, don't try and do it all at once. Really use it as an opportunity to create workflows, because this is a living process, right? 2 weeks after you go, yay, we're done, someone's going to go, so we fired our display vendor, and here's all the new pixels for the new. So we run this again. It goes into the next iteration, and we've done a lot of practice, and everybody's really happy, and trust me, it's easy. So at this point, we have a fully documented implementation guide for all the marketing pixels, for all the analytics, everything that has to be done. We have a tag manager that's fully set up, and so what we want to do is get everything into the system in a way that teaches the business how to do this properly all the time. So.
Yeah, I mean, so just going back, thinking again where we started, the destruction scenario that we started, you know, jarred you guys into, you know, some state of listening to us with. Think about that and think about kind of where we are now, right? So, and like, we should feel very good about kind of how far we came in not a long period of time. But what I think Jim said is very important is that this is an iterative process, right? Like, we're not there yet, and we will never be all the way there. You know, things change, and you know, there's always, you know, the need to evolve and grow forward. You know, but again, it's like building the house, right? I feel good that we've built the foundation, and we've built a solid foundation, and you know, hopefully, we don't have to do that ever again. So.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, a couple other things that are specific to Lucky, but again, so many big things were happening at the same time that, because when we met Brian, he had just bought Telium. Like, it was happening, right? But there wasn't a partner of record yet. When we were done talking about hockey and getting a lot of free wine from you, and we realized we could do some work together, we again said this has to be done deliberately and separately and on purpose. But what was going to happen was that the build agency of record for the new Demandware site was just going to go, okay, we'll put Telium on the, like, that was going to be the extent of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so it wouldn't have had the same level of requirements support. It would have just been tag the stuff you built because we bought Telium. And the other thing is that a website redevelopment project is gigantic, and believe it or not, sometimes they don't finish on time. So measurement would not have been remotely done by now, and we would still be using the abacus from IBM, and we would still be trying to figure out a lot of things that are hard, and we were able to get it done in a way that's easy. So, you know I keep harping on this, but don't forget that marketing is the one who builds the blueprint, but IT gave you the keys, and if, you know, that relationship and that ongoing output, I think, are even more important to the success of this project than the actual measurement piece itself. Because a year after this is done, if you're in a position where you've got requirements coming in and quality work coming out in a timely way that's not tied to release cycles, that's significant competitive advantage. That's doing it properly. Brian?
Yeah.
So I think
I've been debating whether or not to say this because there's a lot of Telium people in the room, so I'm just, but you know, no shame. So when you tell people, like, as a client that you just bought Telium, you get a very interesting range of responses to that statement. I don't know if you guys want to play along with I don't think we have the interactive crowd right now. If we're doing like real-time audience stream, I'm putting you guys in the non-interactive segment right now. See what I did there, Telium people? The ranges of response go from anywhere from like okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Good, you know, to like, good luck, call me in 18 months. You know, like it's a really, and when you've just signed up for this thing and like, you know, you got your CFO signed the contract and you're looking at requirements and Telium sends you that first tagging requirement spreadsheet and you're like, shit, you know, like, what exactly, you know, like what did we sign up for? So there's, you know, we had some self-reflective moments, and I think part of the thing is also realizing that, you know, what are your organizational strengths and competencies, right? And where if that does not exist within your organization, and I'm really trying not to make this an infomercial. It could be any integrator partner. It doesn't have to be whatever these guys are called. It can be, you know, I would suggest, you know, doing some research and asking around, and don't feel like you have to, you know, other than maybe budgetary reasons, do it on your own, right? Ask questions and try to be educated and go to more training. Do whatever you can to do it right the first time, right? And don't be the, oh, talk to me in 18 months guy that has a terrible experience. So that's my candid thought on that.
So we're going to have a separate slide on what I was going to call home insurance to kind of finish beating this metaphor to death, but we had one last point here, because again, when you think about Project Finished, it is a wonderful opportunity to start thinking about governance, to start thinking about the proper application of development best practices like QA into the way that marketing technology is deployed. Everybody's excited, we all work together, we built this big thing, and the ongoing maintenance and governance is when that happens. And it's, again, as important as the technology and being able to be competitive and go out and win. Thank you very much.
Cool, thanks guys.